Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of the Snap Judgments podcast, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Welcome back, everybody. To anyone new, welcome aboard. Today, we've got two really cool decks for you to try out. The first of those is an Echo deck, and we have Echo Theory Crafting right here from our own den. We're going to take the Thanos deck he builds in this article, and we can scroll. He goes over all the different synergies for the cards, all the different things it's good, bad, and otherwise with. So Den is a legend. You should check it out. But we take this Thanos Zoo list, and we spice it up a little bit to make it better. And in addition, we're going to have a fantastic Nimrod Galactus deck for you. That deck is going to work fairly similarly to the Jolly Rogers Nimrod Shuri deck from last week, but instead of trying to use Taskmaster on Destroyer, it's going to try and sneak in that Galactus last turn for a win. And it does an excellent job of taking advantage of Jean Grey. All right. Before we go any further, let's take an actual look at Echo. Echo is a 1/2. Description: after your opponent plays an ongoing card here, remove its abilities. So that means it has to come down first, and then any ongoings on that lane your opponent plays the rest of the game no longer work. That obviously synergizes really well in turning off things like Cosmo for your Wong. And the weakness of Valkyrie is she doesn't get around ongoings. Echo is absolutely phenomenal for a Valkyrie lane. It's basically going to beat, as long as it's down first, as long as they're not killmongering, it's going to beat any other card in the game in that situation, assuming you have a way to go above them with your own ongoing. That's why we're talking Thanos Zoo, by the way. I think Echo is an absolutely stellar card for that particular matchup, and I think it ends up being much play. All right, before we get to the decks, I'd like to ask you to hit that sub button, ring that notification bell, like, comment. We really appreciate the support. We are a growing channel, and we are doing our best to bring you high quality content. Yeah, we're bringing you content. High quality content. I don't know why I can't say that today. Every single weekday, we do 2 decks every weekday that keep you ahead of the meta, help you get infinite, help you steal cubes. We bring you decks before the larger meta is aware they exist. In addition, we do the biggest giveaway in Marvel Snap, but you got to be subbed to make sure that you don't miss it. And if you're not subbed, you can't enter. So sub, like, comment, help us out with that algorithm with those comments. We really appreciate you. Thanks so much for watching. All right, let's get to this Echo Thanos list. Right here. This is Den's Thanos Zoo. He had Cosmo, Armor, Khazar, and Spectrum in it. I have replaced those cards with Spider-Man, Devil Dinosaur, Iron Lad, and Invisible Woman. I'm not sold on Invisible Woman. That still might want to be. Let's go through what this deck does. You have 3 ways of winning a Valkyrie lane, assuming you can get them going. You can Valkyrie with Ant-Man in a lane. That Ant-Man's 4 is more than the 3 Valkyrie turns everything to. Ant-Man actually becomes a 7 in that case. You can Valkyrie in a lane that has something like Spider-Man or like Iron Lad, as long as you have Luke Cage out, because it's not going to lower the power of that card. You can Valkyrie in an Echo lane. Obviously, that's going to raise Echo strength, and then their own ongoings can't go off. The Soul Stone's negative, however, will still weaken all of their cards in that lane. And you can have Blue Marvel out before you play Valkyrie. And that Blue Marvel is going to win you the lane by giving all of your cards plus power. All of these ways win with Valkyrie. I'm a little concerned about winning initiative with this deck. That's why I added Invisible Woman over Armor. I feel like if I put Echo, then Invisible Woman, then other cards, or I go Invisible Woman, and I know they're not playing ongoings for one of the many ways I could know that, Valkyrie is going to reveal last, and then that will win me the game. I would also really like in this deck to Time Stone on turn 3 where possible. That Time Stone is meant to lead into an early Professor X. I can play Professor X on turn 4, win a lane, or I can play Spider-Man or Professor X on turn 5 and win a lane. Both of those suggest I may want Jeff in this deck, but hey, 12 spots is 12 spots. I also have Iron Lad, who I can play either A, for an extra draw, or B, in order to get a better ability. In order to try and Spider-Man off a lane early, grab a giant Devil Dino, grab a Professor X. Even becoming Echo isn't completely terrible here. Becoming Luke Cage is good. Becoming Invisible Woman is good. The only real bad hit here is Thanos. You don't really want Thanos. Jean Grey is really, really good in Thanos decks because, well, you have 1,000 stones to play, and every deck does not have the answer to playing all these stones. So when you play your Jean Grey, the opponent can't necessarily do anything about that. They're stuck playing their one card while you can play a stone and go elsewhere. Time Stone is a really, really great play on 4. In this way, because then you can play on 5, you can play another stone and then lock a lane with Spider-Man or Professor X. It works really well. And then your last turn ends up being Valkyrie and a 1-drop to close down that Jean lane and win the game. It works so well. Devil Dino is just a big card. It's not affected by Valkyrie. I like to have one big thing that's not Thanos in these decks. Spectrum is trying to make these cards bigger, but it doesn't do exactly what we want it to. It does what we want it to, but I don't think it's quite enough. I think Blue Marvel is more than enough for the control shell of this deck. If you're seeing a lot of Killmonger in your meta, obviously Armor makes a lot more sense than Luke Cage. Luke Cage is nice, but not a complete necessity. I don't like Kazar in these decks. Spectrum has some value, but I want to be Valkyrieing last turn, not necessarily playing that Spectrum, or I want to be able to play Devil Dino, which is also in the deck. And Cosmo is great, but Cosmo is anti-synergy with Valkyrie or Spectrum or Iron Lad, whether you're playing Iron Lad or Spectrum, right? And it's counter-synergy with the stones. I think Cosmo has a place in a lot of these decks. If Echo means that Wong-going becomes a real thing again, then you should start to look at Cosmo again in this deck. I think this deck works really, really well. I am personally, I'm going to tell you straight up, not buying Echo for a day or two. I think that we can afford to wait before we do that. I don't think that there's any real rush to buy Echo. I think the card is good, but it's not like a necessity. It's not something that like you're going to need in order to compete in the game. And for the amount of tokens or spotlight caches you're opening, I think I'd rather save for the August cards. Now, if by Friday people have broken this deck, it's in clearly the best decks in the game, we will revisit. That's why you don't have to buy it on the first day. That's my honest advice for Echo. I don't think unless you're like dying for this card, you buy it right away. I think it's perfectly viable as something you get later on. All right, our next deck for today, and I'm going to link Revis's own video in our comments. Revis has this awesome Galactus Nimrod deck. Now, last week we talked, or 2 weeks ago, I don't know. Time has lost all meaning. It's summer. I'm a teacher. So Galactus, 2 weeks ago, we looked at a deck that was fundamentally built around going Shuri, Nimrod, and then the last turn of the game, playing either Venom and Carnage or Destroyer. That one also ran Deathlock, and it also ran Invisible Woman and Taskmaster, so that you can go Shuri into then play Taskmaster and Invisible Woman lane, doesn't count as revealed, then play Destroyer to get 30, and then Destroyer will then reveal but not destroy that Taskmaster for another 30. 30 power in 2 lanes, wins an awful lot of games of Marvel Snap. That also had the Nimrod package as a plan. This deck tries to do something else entirely. Oh, well, instead of that Destroyer plan in particular, its backup plan is Galactus. If you can, early on, get out Electro into Nimrod into Galactus, you win a lot of games of Marvel Snap. That's fundamentally how that goes. At that point, you're going to want to play Null into that lane for the next play. Don't play Destroyer. You will destroy your Nimrods and they will not come back. But you're going to want to play Null in that lane last because you'll have Galactus, 2 Nimrods, and a Null, ideally. And that's usually going to win. Even if they Shang you still got your 12+7, you still got your 19 from your Nimrods and Galactus there to win. And if they don't Shang you, well, your Null is humongous and you're going to get that game. So, like, don't stress it out too much. You've got it. Basically, Jean Grey does a great job of screwing up your opponent's game plan. Like, they want to be able to play whatever they want to play, where they play it. Instead, you play Jean Grey, Shuri, Nimrod, and then you start going into your Destroy stuff. There's not a lot of opponents can do. You're going to be adding 20+ power in every single lane, that play line. The other real valid play is obviously Electro into Nimrod into Galactus. You can also play Psylocke into Nimrod early. Then on turn 5, do your Venom Carnage trick, right? And then you on the last turn can play Destroyer and just have an absolute insane amount of rods all over the damn board. Works really well. The toss-up here, the real spice, is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. If you don't have Negasonic, please feel free to just put Deathlock back into the deck. Negasonic is here because when you get that Galactus off, and you get that Galactus off a lot more than you think because people don't expect it anymore, but when you get that Galactus off, you will have priority, right? Because you got Galactus off because you were winning that lane. That usually means dropping Negasonic wins the game. Because you drop Negasonic, they play their biggest thing. They're expecting to overtake your Galactus, and, well, your Negasonic just blows it up immediately. GG, enjoy. Wolverine is sort of like a backup mini Nimrod for the Galactus, the Venom, and the Carnage plans. Works just fine with literally every plan in the deck. Do you need Gene for this? No, but I strongly suggest it. Psylocke might want to be either Taskmaster or or Winter Soldier as well. There's lots of options for this deck. Revis absolutely crushes with it in Conquest mode, and he's one of the best deck builders. If you're not aware of him, like, he's one of the best deck builders and players that needs to be more famous. So, like, check the description, double check his channel. You're not going to regret it. He's, like, absolutely stellar at the game, and if he says a deck works, like, spoiler, the deck works. He says this deck works. He went and made a video on it. That means this is a deck you can take to the bank. All right, that's it for today's Snap Take. Please remember to subscribe, hit that like button. I don't know if I'll be back later on today. I'm kind of hoping not. If nothing major breaks in Marvel Snap, then you won't hear from me again. Make sure to check out Marvel Snap Zone. I'll have a deck of the day out. I will also have the top 5 ways to nerf Bounce. Make sure you check that out as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support. Like, sub, and peace.